We're live. Welcome to the Design to Rich by Design. I have so many names for different programs that sometimes I forget where I am. Welcome to the Rich by Design podcast. I am so excited about today's episode because I am talking to one of my favorite people in the world, and you are going to love her. So I'm going to jump in and just tell you how we met first and then I'll have her share her story. So this is Barbie. Welcome, Barbie.
Thank you. Hello. I'm so happy to do this with you and see you.
I know. Thank you. I so appreciate it. I think it's just going to be such a rich conversation. So Barbie and I met in 2014 when she signed up for coaching through Tony Robbins, and I was assigned as her coach. And I have shared this before, but when I was reading her intake, I was like, how the heck am I going to coach this woman? She is such a freaking rock star. There's nothing I could do for her. And she was already this 7-figure Beachbody coach. She had this huge team that she built from scratch. And in the Robbins world, we are trained that we can coach anybody, anywhere, anytime. So I chose to believe that. And then we ended up working together for 3 years. And then we stayed in touch and became friends after that. And ironically, we have never met in real life.
Which is crazy.
Yet she is somebody that I consider a really dear friend, and I am so beyond grateful to have her in my life, and I am so excited for y'all to meet her. So welcome. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too. Thank you so much.
Yep. So life handed you a pretty big transition work-wise in the past few years. So that we can set the stage for what we're going to talk about, can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life now as far as what you're doing work-wise, like what the transition was and then what you're doing work-wise?
Okay. So first, let me say that when we first started working together through Tony Robbins, I was able to double my income because we worked together. I had a really, really big goal, and I wasn't making 7 figures yet, $750 per year to $1.4 million a year. Like, that's insane.
That's insane.
And we worked so closely together to reach that goal. So that's that. Okay, so I was with Beachbody for 17 years. In 2024, in September, we got word that the business opportunity was going to come to an end. And in the first week of January, I received my last paycheck, and my income, as my husband says, went from 7 zeros to 0 zeros, right? And at first, I was happy because I was emotionally and psychologically and on every level, almost every level, I was done, even though the money was amazing. But it was just time to move on. But it was difficult to move on from something that paid me so much. And so I was happy. But then I noticed that my nervous system was like, this is freaking hard. This is hard. This is hard. This is hard. Anyway, fast forward. I didn't wait very long to decide what I was going to do next, because back in 2021, I started teaching online courses. It was more like my first course was called like Life 2.0 Academy. And it was more like life coaching kind of stuff. And then I started teaching about money. And then I slowly transitioned into somatics and embodiment work. And really that's what I do now, helping women. It's similar to what you do, just different. Helping women reclaim themselves. And I'm not so into human design, but I still like the term I love human design. I'm just saying I don't incorporate it as much. Really helping women to decondition themselves, right? We've all been conditioned. This is the way it is. This is what we're supposed to do. This is the way we think. And we get lost in the process in some ways and forget to ask, well, what do I actually want? What do I actually need? And I would say 99.9% of us have forgotten that we have a body, right? That we have a body with a nervous system, and so many of us are living in our head. So that's where I've transitioned to, and it is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. But then cue in SSP, you can do the transition here.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too, I think it's been a beautiful journey for both of us because when we first started working together, right? We were like I was trained at masters in counseling, so it was all like talk therapy, asking questions. There was no mention when I went to grad school for counseling about anything in the body. Right? I understood trauma a little bit, right? But like not as much as now. And there have been huge like strides and changes in the education, since early 2000s to now, but we were both in that very head and also masculine world of like go, strive, achieve, and just override feelings, override the body. And so the journey, for both of us was moving from that,
Yes.
getting back into the feminine, getting back into our bodies. I started doing energy work. I remember
First,
we started talking.
you were one of the first ones, right? That I knew.
Hmm. I mean, I definitely wasn't one of the first ones, but in the like as things started shifting and changing, and at first, I remember you were like, "Yeah, no," right? And then it's like,
Was I? Was I really?
yeah, so yeah, but everybody, I was too, and I still am, the type of person who I'm like, I totally believe it, and I totally don't believe it all at the same time, right? I think there's a both and there's that middle world that we can live in, but seeing that transition, for both of us and getting more into the body stuff. And so I know that you've done a ton of work, right? Somatic work, of course, mindset work. Um, and then we started talking about SSP. Okay? And before I jump into the question, I just want to pause for anybody who's listening for the first time to explain a little bit about what SSP, the Safe and Sound Protocol, is, because I don't want you to be listening to this whole conversation and not know what the heck we're talking about. Right. So through all of that transition that I've talked about, from like here's a head getting into the body, and the coaching that I came from was always like here's the problem, here's the strategy to fix it. But what I saw was that you can give the strategy and then the person comes back on the call the next week, I didn't do it, why not? Right? And it's not because they didn't have strategy or because they had a strategy problem, right? They didn't have a motivation problem, right? It's not I just need to think more thoughts. It was a nervous system that has been working so hard to keep the person safe, and that person's either in fight or flight or shutdown mode, and it doesn't have the capacity to do the strategy, right? And so when your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, it changes everything. It's the way that you think, the way that you respond, your ability to have difficult conversations, to ask for help, to receive money, right? To be visible. I mean, visibility is such a big thing for people when it comes to business. Like, what you should be doing, but you don't, right? There's this like invisible force holding you back. And that's where the Safe and Sound Protocol comes in. And so the Safe and Sound Protocol was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, who is the creator of the polyvagal theory. And basically, it is a 5-hour listening therapy that uses specifically filtered music to gently help retune the nervous system. And the music emphasizes the frequencies of the human voice, the sounds that our nervous system naturally associates with safety and connection. And over time, it helps the body become better at recognizing those cues. And so the goal with SSP isn't to force relaxation or, oh, I'm dysregulated, let me do some kind of, breath work or something to like regulate me. The goal is to help the nervous system become more flexible and more capable of returning to a regulated state after stress. And so if we think about it like we're a piano, right? Over time, the piano goes out of tune, right? And you can still play the piano, but it doesn't sound right? It doesn't sound the way it's designed to. And that's the way our nervous system is. We come into the world. Well, I can't say that we come into the world because there's lots of birth stuff, but we're meant to come into the world, right? With this finely tuned instrument. But then life happens and things go out of tune. And the Safe and Sound Protocol just helps to gently retune that instrument. And so for a lot of people, the changes aren't really dramatic. And for some people, they are, which we'll talk about, right? But you start to realize some things. And this is why I love this conversation with you, because there were so many things that came up that were surprising. And so when we started talking about SSP, I know you had the same thoughts that I did. Was like, well, I've done so much work. I don't know if it can really, will really do anything for me. So tell me about your thought process, like in the hearing about it to deciding to do SSP.
Yeah. So you and I are friends in the sense that I'm not a very social I wouldn't consider myself a very social person, right? In human design, I was 6'2" and my two line is pretty strong. But you and I chat all the freaking time through voice memo. And I remember when you started telling me about it and you're like, oh, I'm doing this SSP thing and I noticed a difference. It was, I think, in February or something like that. You went on a trip to San Diego and you said something like, normally I'm with people, when I'm with people for an extended period of time, I just go crazy. And it's weird that it didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you, and again, you weren't trying to sell me anything. You were really just like sharing your experience with me, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then you and I have been talking about business forever, right? All the time. And when you were telling me about SSP, I noticed a huge shift in your positivity. Like, you've always been exactly who you are. I feel one of the things that I love about you is that you are exactly who you are, and you're very open about your life experiences, like even, your personal relationships and your work and what's hard and all that. It's what makes you so relatable and also an expert at the same time, right? Like, we need these stories. We don't need to hear just highlight reels. That said, when you and I were talking for a while, because business is freaking hard sometimes. And I didn't ask you if I could say this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a tinge of like negativity in your sharing. Like, it was just like a little bit of color of, um, like, you're doing all the things in business and it wasn't working exactly the way that you wanted, but it was like there was just an undertone of like, but it's like it's not going to work, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And then I hate to say it, right? Because
No,
it's like,
but that's true. There's always this like, I'm trying everything, it's not going to work for me.
yes, okay, thank you for saying it. I kind of didn't want to say it, but that's what I saw. That's what I felt. And I was like, this shit's not going to work if you think it's not going to work, right? Then SSP came into the picture and something, I mean, I got chills if you're seeing this video. I literally got goosebumps. Then something shifted. And for me, it was like night and day. It was like all of a sudden, not only was it working, I don't know which came first, your attitude changed or your being changed, and then things started working. And it wasn't because you were selling more XYZ. It was just that your vibe, literally, like your essence and your vibe, you were still the same person because, like I said, you've always been kind, generous, hardworking, all those things. Like, but there was just a vibe that was like, whoa, like, you're very positive, and the word is optimistic. And it was when I really felt that I was like, okay, I want to try this thing. Like, this is it, because it was night and day. And again, you weren't trying to sell me on anything. It wasn't anything that you said. It was because you and I talk so often, it was just your being, and it was undeniable. So I was like, oh, okay, let me say one more thing. When you first told me about it, I was like, yes, I said, I've already done so much work, but beyond that, I'm not into hacks. I was into hacks. Like, I've bought, God knows, if you come into the house, you're going to see like a gazillion devices that I've bought. And when I got into nervous system work, and I also am a Vedic meditator, I stopped being into hacks and I started trusting my body. And so I was like, I'm not going to freaking spend money on another freaking device that I have to plug in, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then you're like, oh, this is different. And again, you weren't trying to sell me. You were just simply sharing your experiences. But then when I saw that night and day shift, and then of course, because I had asked you for like a link to read up on it, and I have a program that I teach that is based on polyvagal theory. And I was like, okay, if Stephen Porges created this, then it must be the real deal. Plus, what I saw with you was undeniable. And so I was like, all right, sign me up.
Mm-hmm. So when you first started with it, what was it for you that you're like, here's what I would like to experience by going through this.
Yeah. So I took copious notes because you said that we should take copious notes.
Mhm.
And when I look back, the number one thing that I said was that I wanted to, I'm trying to remember, that I wanted to, oh yeah, I felt a lot of resistance about social engagement. And that's what the polyvagal theory is, right? Like I I ran an online business that was from home for 17 years, and pretty much since the pandemic, I've been very, very hermity. When we stopped doing these in-person events, and I was just finding it really, really, really difficult to put myself out there. So the number one thing that I wanted was to, I guess, increase my social engagement and be willing to put myself out there. That's the number one reason that I did it. Now, what I got was something different.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. I want to pause and say about notes, because I do tell people to take notes, and you don't have to write lengthy journal entries every single day. It's just jotting down like what you're feeling, not only when you're listening, but like you can look back on the day before and just be like, oh, I was irritated, or oh, I was exhausted, or oh, I felt really happy, or oh, I'm feeling less stress. Because we have these magical tools now of AI, and whether I know some people love it, I know some people hate it, but it's just that, like a knife. A knife can be used to prepare a beautiful meal, or it can be used to harm somebody. And it's the same thing, with AI. And I love it for this because it can really help us to see patterns that I wouldn't pick up on as a practitioner, right? Because I just don't have, all the information. And as the person doing it, we can't always see our own stuff. And so when we take notes and then we can feed it into the GPT and be like, hey, help me to see patterns that I'm not seeing, it's mind blowing what comes up, because a lot of times they are subtle changes that we don't pay much attention to. And most people don't. And that's part of the process of SSP, is helping us to connect to that interoception, like paying attention to what is going on. And that's why I encourage people to take the notes once. They can just be like, hey, what was going on for me? Because most of us don't take the time to do that. And so one of the things that, like, reading through, because you shared a lot of your journal notes with me, is that none of the changes were super dramatic, right? Instead, they were things that maybe stopped bothering you. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I notice I'm being more patient, right? Or notice, some like that I'm responding differently in this. But it wasn't like you woke up in the morning and all of a sudden was like, I'm a whole new person, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And actually, let me share something. I'd love to share my day one note, because actually I had forgotten that I said this. And this was one thing that actually changed. So starting off, this is day one. Starting off in general, I've been feeling a lot of resistance around putting myself out there in the quote unquote real world. I'm doing this SSP because I would really like to improve my social engagement. I conditioned myself to be a hermit and to only build online. Okay, so that we already spoke about. Here's the thing. I've been feeling a desire to move forward, but also a lack of motivation. I am deeply committed to my work in somatics, and then I underline this, but have been feeling a low grade feeling of down. I felt down, not depression, just like it was very low grade down, and lack of drive. I feel regulated, but just not enthusiastic. I'm looking to improve my mood. And I have to say, I haven't gone back to look exactly when it happened, but so from the very first day that I listened, I cried 3 times, not like a maniac, but I really, really cried. And I'm not like, I cry easily, but not like that, right? I was just like, whoa, what the heck is this, right? And then I want to say I started sleeping better almost immediately. By day 18, I already noticed that my capacity had grown. I was just able to do more. And I want to say by the third week, because I highlighted it in green, that my husband said, whatever season you're in, stay there. You're so different. And isn't that so beautiful? And just realized, I'm reading what I wrote, just realized big improvement with patience. Things are simply not getting to me like before. First day, I'm able to name it. Absolutely incredible. It's absolutely capacity, but truly effortless. Like I'm not trying to be more patient. And then what I noticed around that same time was simply, and I say simply, and it is freaking magical and it is huge and life-changing, that I simply was not waking up feeling down. So for I don't know how many years, I would wake up and just immediately notice that I was like just a little bit down, right? And so I would meditate, I would do my somatic stuff, and it would take me hours to get myself feeling good, like feeling well, having that sense of well-being. And that was the most important thing. So it's almost like, I like that you said, like, I'm not a whole different person, but I kind of am, right? And just like with you, you know, you're still the same kind, patient, loving, hardworking person, but you went from being a little bit like, oh, this is not going to work out, even though you're doing all the things, to like, life is great. Like, oh yeah, I can, like, you are a different person.
Mm-hmm.
The same person. And the same thing with me. It's like, it is night and day to wake up and not feel like, oh, fuck, I got to face the day. Right. So it's not drastic, and it is. I know that had I not taken notes, I would have missed it. Like if you do SSP, you must, I mean, you don't have to do anything, but you really, 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 really should take notes, because what I did was I put all my notes on day 20 something into Chat GPT, and I said exactly that. I said, analyze the patterns, show me what I can't see. And then I sent it to Heather, and we were like, holy moly, I didn't realize that this is what happened.
Yeah. And I didn't even think to use the like ChatGPT with the notes, because I just was telling people to take notes, right, so that we can see patterns. I use AI so much, so I didn't think about that. Like when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Like that is freaking brilliant, right? I had another client yesterday who is, taking notes, because a lot of people still are not. Like, and here's the thing about that too, is that like they're not at a capacity where they can even do it, right? They're like, I haven't figured out a system. And I'm like, it's easy, just on your phone, just do it, right? And even that is, so much sometimes for some people. But I tell them, I'm like, if you're the type of person who wants to get the most value out of your investment, take notes, right? Because we will start to see these things.
I have to tell you, like you'll miss, I want to say you'll miss 80 to 90%, because I don't know if you've looked at I haven't looked recently, right? But, I started out saying that I wanted to increase my social engagement. And what has actually happened, surprised the heck out of me, I actually I have sorted the fact that I'm on this podcast and that I volunteered for it, that I was like, Heather, you can have me as a guest, right? Like that's not very like me, because normally I'm very like recluse, right? So the fact that I volunteered for this, and yesterday I taught a workshop, and I was like, and I have the energy today, and on Sunday I'm leading this other thing, like I guess my social engagement has gone up. But what has happened is that I actually decided to take a social media sabbatical. And then so further into the SSP, I decided to take a complete work sabbatical. My body, my nervous system could not have felt safe enough to do that before. I can only attribute that to SSP. Like it was just like it surprised even me that I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just pause. I'm going to pause, because I realized that even though 2 months ago I said, okay, I'm going to go on a social media sabbatical, my brain was still spinning, trying to be like, what's my next move? And then actually, I don't know if I should tell you this, but so I told you that I was going to do EMDR, right? Because one of the things that I noticed was that like my head was like I was stuck in a loop, and I kept thinking, like, what's my next move? What's my next move? Blah, blah, blah. And so I went and I talked to a therapist about this. And then she's like, well, let's do an EMDR session, because it does seem like you're kind of stuck in a loop with this, right? Well, I don't feel like I'm stuck in a loop, and I actually canceled it this morning. So
Oh,
yeah, I canceled it this morning because I'm like, I sincerely, when I walked out of that session, I only did one session, I was like, I'm going to give myself permission to not work. And then I have given myself permission to not work.
mm,
And this morning, because they called to confirm the appointment for next week, I was like, I sincerely feel like I don't need it. Like, I don't, not that I'm not open to it, right? And I'll say the disclaimer for you, like, this is complementary therapy, right? Like, it doesn't replace, mental health therapy, but I wasn't having, like, this was also complementary for me. Like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do an EMDR session and whatever. But I was like, no, sincerely, I have given myself permission to take time off so that I can tap into my desires and, like, my creativity. And I'm doing it, and I can feel like yesterday I led a workshop, and I was like, oh my God, I was born to do this, right? And I was like, this is what I've missed, and yeah, so that's that.
I love that. And thank you for saying that, that the disclaimer, because I get so many people who are like, well, can't you just give me the music and I'll go listen to it on my own, and I'll just do the work like I do it on my own. And I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely not. No, it is meant to be done with a practitioner. And that's why I have the programs that I have to work with people, because you can't do it in isolation. And it's called the safe and sound protocol for a reason. The safe part is the having the person that you can co-regulate with. And so it is meant, they say it's like the prehab before the rehab. Safe and sound helps other therapeutic modalities be accessible to the person, because talk therapy is really hard when somebody's body is in complete shutdown or fight or flight. You can't have those conversations. You need to have capacity in your body to receive all those things. And so it helps to set the stage for other modalities. So one of the words that I heard you say, it's one of my favorite words, is the word capacity. Okay. How would you describe capacity? As I think it's a buzzword that people are starting to hear more now of, but how would you describe capacity?
It's such a huge word. If you think of I'm holding a cup, and it has some water, right? So some of us, we start the day off, if the water is the level of just stuff that's in your life, like this could mean many things, right? Like the things that you're dealing with in your life. Well, some of us have a lot of capacity. We can deal with a lot of stuff, right? Like we can deal with the kids, the work, the boyfriend, the husband, the mouth, the whatever, right? Like life, economics, whatever. When you feel that you're at capacity, like you can't put another drop in this glass because the water's going to overflow. And that's when you're going to scream at your children, or you're going to scream at the dog, the spouse, the boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. And you simply cannot handle anymore. And so what nervous system work does, and what this does so beautifully, I love that you put it, gently retunes like a piano, it gently retunes the nervous system. It increases your capacity. So it's like the container expands, and so you can do more things. I found that I was having more quote unquote capacity to deal with more life stuff. And so my resilience grew, my patience grew, my ability to do more activities grew, which has been so beautiful. And I wanted to say, like, and I've said this to you, and I have this image, like, I feel like SSP, again, I do the work. I'm all about somatics, the nervous system, embodiment, all this stuff. And yet I feel that SSP, the image that I have is like water getting into the cracks. Like I feel like SSP got into a part of me that I didn't have access to. Like with all the freaking years, I've done at least 10 years of therapy, at least 10 years of therapy. I've done, I have this device, that device, infrared, cryotherapy, I mean, meditation, blah, 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 blah. I have everything, and I've done not everything, but almost everything. And I was still waking up a little bit sad, and I didn't even know that I had a different option. So the fact that now I'm waking up with a neutral baseline,
Mm-hmm.
I could not have done that on my own. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe in 2 years it would have shifted. But to me, that alone was worth the price of, the whole investment.
Right. Yeah. And you also had an experience where you stayed in a hotel and there was a lot of chemical smells. And can you talk about your experience with that compared to what your experience would have been before?
Oh, it wasn't, well, no, the chemicals really bothered me because people, were using Clorox or whatever. So actually that really did bother me, but it wasn't really so much that, I think, or I don't know if I told you that the chemicals maybe didn't bother me as much. No, it still really bothered me. But yes, the whole experience, my husband is extremely sensitive to chemicals. So it was really, really affecting him. And it was affecting me. I had a hard time sleeping, but the whole experience was, and then on top of that, okay, I remember what I told you. Like, they brought us food, and I swear we were in Mexico, and the guacamole, I believe, was not even real guacamole. Like, it looked like it was some GMO, like fake guacamole. And the chicken, like, we put the dessert, not forget about the chicken. We put the dessert like out to the side, and we left it there for 3 days, and it didn't move. You know how like the McDonald's like French fries and hamburger, it doesn't decay because it was literally fake food. Okay. So all of that would have probably gotten me into like just dysregulation and into a tizzy. And it was almost like I was looking, it wasn't dissociation. It was really like I was looking at it like, this is some nonsense. I don't like this experience. So that's when I noticed that my capacity, in the sense of like my patience and my tolerance, increased. Yes, but the smells really did bother me. However, the day that we were going to leave back home, I said to myself, this was the hugest mistake. I almost killed my husband. And I said, babe, listen to 2 minutes and 38 seconds of Connect, which doesn't even have the whatever it's called, like the filter,
right.
filter, right? So it's supposed to be like benign, right? Like nothing. And then he was like, oh, this is like my piano music, right? Like we have this piano thing that plays by itself at home. And I want to say within 5 minutes, he was like, I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. He's like, I feel horrible. And I don't want to talk about his experience, but he has given me permission to share his experience, that it felt like doomsday. He literally felt like he was going to die. And he was like his body contracted, and he was just, oh, it breaks my heart. He was shaking. And I knew that it was the SSP. And so I texted Heather, and then, he was okay, and he was able to get over it. And it's really just such a shame, because he said, I will never, ever, he got traumatized, right? Like, I am responsible for helping traumatize my husband with this device. And yet he's able to see how incredible it is for me. And he supports the fact that I do it. He says that I'm in a different season, like I'm just calmer, nicer, like more patient, all these things. And so that's why I told Heather, I was like, oh, I thought you didn't want me to, share it with like a 2-for-1 deal. I thought it was more like an economical thing of like, like you have to pay, and you're my friend, but still, like, I thought it was more a money thing. Like, yeah, you have to pay me if you want your husband to use it, but 2 minutes of something that doesn't even carry the frequency or whatever, the filter, I want to say, like, he literally, not figuratively, he literally felt like he was going to die. Then I went down the rabbit hole of research, and then I saw that some people are extremely, and you've told me that, right? Some people are just extremely sensitive, and they can only do a few seconds at a time, even just a few seconds a week. And that's when I really, really understood the importance of having a practitioner, a provider, and not doing this alone. My experience was pretty like, I'm in a bad mood. Like the other day, it was towards the end of core. I was just mad all day about something that happened 10 years ago. And I out of nowhere, I just think that in that day, I had the capacity to process whatever I needed to process, because I was literally furious all day about something over 10 years ago that had nothing to do with anything in the moment. And I was like, okay, this stuff is coming up. Let me just like shut up and and deal with it. And I did. And then the next day I was fine. But yes, you need a practitioner. You really do.
Yeah, it is. I cannot stress it enough. And it's so frustrating for me when people like, I mean, I had a guy like yell at me and he's like, you should just give it to me. And this guy says that he works with trauma. And I was like, well, if you do, then you'd understand. Right. And I'm learning more and more about who are the people that I want to work with and the level of support. I had somebody recently who was, so completely just in crisis mode, which it can work. It does work for people in crisis mode. Just the level of support that you need is beyond the type of practice that I want to have at this stage of my life, right?
Yes.
Because you know me, and I'm the type of person who, hey, you can reach out to me whenever you need me.
I feel like you're very more so than me. You're more reachable than I am. You're very hands-on. You're very supportive. You don't mind people texting you and all that. I do.
Yeah, and like I'm also learning, like with me going through SSP, wait a minute, like I don't need to be responsible 24/7 for people. And this is where I want to do a plug, because this is why I weave in human design and our money archetypes too, because with my human design, my core gift in human design is my sensitivity. And I think I shared this. Well, I didn't share this part with you the other day, but one of the things that as I was contemplating this part of my human design, it talks about how just because you're sensitive to people's needs doesn't mean you're responsible for them. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I'm a Cancer moon, and I also have some channel or gate. I forgot the 2750, where I'm like basically like I care for animals, ants, mice, whatever. Like I just like, so I totally understand, and that burned me out. So
Yeah. And for me too, I mean, when I worked as a therapist, I remember I would just come home every day and just go into bed and just watch like, design shows, like home makeover shows or whatever. Cause I was like, I have no capacity to deal with life. And now it's like, I'm getting more and more clear about who I want to work with, because SSP absolutely can, there are people that it maybe is not the best for, like I said, in high crisis mode, in like have a lot of things going on physiologically, and it needs to be titrated very, very, very slowly. And I have a couple of clients like that, and I love working with them because they're willing to go slow with it, right? But I have this one story, I think I shared with you, of a male client who, when I work with people, we start out with a listening schedule, right? But it's all contingent upon noticing what's going on for your body. And it's not, you have to follow this schedule. It's here's a guide way to say, this is the direction to start going in, and then listen to what's going on in your body. Maybe we need to pull back. Maybe we need to pause for a couple days. But, being a guy, and he's got all these things going on in his life that he's like, I have to solve this now. He listened to too much. It was too fast for his nervous system. And he's like, why do I feel like crap listening to this? I'm like, because you blew out your nervous system. You didn't listen to my instructions, and you listened, like, it's just too much. And I had to speak to him the way the man could understand. Right? And I was just like, you raped your nervous system. And he's like, oh, I get it. Right? I'm like, we need slow and steady. And he's like, but, and I'm like, if you want lasting, if you want, this to work, we got to go slow and steady. And everybody has such a different experience. I have people like yourself who've done a lot of stuff, and they're like, yeah, I didn't really notice a ton. I'm like, were you taking notes? No. And I'm like, well, you missed out on a lot of the stuff. Right. And then other people, like I said, we're going really, really slow. But something that I wanted to talk about that you brought up is that you were angry about something that happened 10 years ago. Right? That happens for a lot of people, where stuff starts coming up and they're like, where is this coming from? And going back to that capacity, is like your body now has the capacity to process it because it didn't at that moment.
100%. I mean, I understanding what I understand, and this is the thing, right? Because I'm into the nervous system and somatics, I understood the science behind it. And I saw, I was like, oh, but other people won't have that. Right. So I understood, I was like, because it was about an incident that happened in my life. And then it was almost like I had, it wasn't almost like, it was like I literally had the capacity to see. I was like, oh, that was fucked up, and 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 that was like there were so many parts. It was like a fan that I wasn't able to see back then, because back then the impact of what had happened felt so big. So imagine, like, I was able to see, had I been able to see the entire picture 10 years ago, I probably would have, like, you know, collapsed or have been more overwhelmed than I was. And so the fact that it came up 10 years later, and that I was able, I was upset when I was thinking about it and feeling into it. I'm like, Barbie, just feel it. I think it lasted maybe 1.5 days, right? Or 2 days. But I will tell you that the third day it was completely gone, and it feels like it was neutralized. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. It has to be SSP, because there was no like anniversary of something that, you know, would trigger the memory. It was like, it felt random. And yeah, and that's why you do need a practitioner. And again, you're so friendly, you're so approachable. And you understand on so many levels, right? Like the science, that you would be able to put things into perspective, and then people could co-regulate with you. I just want to say, I also understand what you're saying about the kind of clients that you're meant for, right? Mm-hmm. And that, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that people come to me and they want to often, like, not, you know, feel anger, not feel sadness, not feel disappointment. Right. And I tell them, I'm like, SSP is not going to do that for you. There's one solution in the world that will help you with that. And that is death. That is the only thing that will stop you from feeling those feelings. Like, as humans, we are meant to feel those feelings. What SSP can do is help you to have the capacity to move through them faster and return to baseline. We don't, like, it would be such a boring life. I mean, I love the movie The Truman Show. It's such an old movie, but I love it so much because it's so, do you remember that movie? Did you ever see it?
Seen it? I need to see it. You've talked about it several times. Yeah, I need to see it.
It's like, when life is predictable, when life is good and everything is just, you know, copacetic all the time, we are innately wired to grow, and that gets boring, right? So then we want to create adventure, which stretches and challenges us. And in that stretch and challenge, that's when we feel stress. That's when we feel frustration. And those things are all helping us to know that we're alive. And it's, how do we move through them? And I ask the question all the time is, you know, people are like, oh, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling whatever. And I'm like, well, how do you feel about that feeling? They're like, what? I'm like, what's your relationship to it? Yes, because it's not the stress, it's not the frustration, it's not the anxiety that's causing the issue. It's your feelings about it.
Yes. Right? People don't want to feel sadness. They don't want to feel angry. And so they resist it. I have to say, SSP, I guess I haven't really thought of it. Oh, my dog's about to start howling. Yeah, you just move through it fast, more quickly, but it's like your capacity, it's like your capacity increases. And so things just don't bother you. What would have gotten you really angry maybe won't even get you angry. So in some ways it does, you know, quote unquote, get rid of it. But then I agree with you. We're human. We're supposed to, if we have a loss or we perceive a loss, we're supposed to feel sad. Like, wouldn't that be sad if your, you know, animal dies, for example, and you're not sad, right? Or your loved one dies and you're not sad. If someone does something against you and you're not angry, like, that doesn't seem,
that's a psychopath.
Yeah, totally. Like, that's not healthy. So we need that perspective, because our society has learned to live in the head. We've been taught to live in the head. And so we just don't know how to have a relationship with our bodies and ourselves. And that's why having someone like you to go through this process and the other stuff that you teach is so important, to learn how to be, literally, we're learning how to be human again, right?
Yeah, that is such a great way to put it. So if we, to wrap this up, if we could go back to the version of yourself that it was like, I'm not sure, what it will do. I did so much work, I've done so much work, which, and I want to say this just to people, because I know you know this, but for those who are listening, and they're like, I've done so much stuff. I said the same thing to the person that shared SSP with me. I'm like, I've done over 3 dozen ayahuasca ceremonies. I've done so much plant medicine.
Saying that, yeah.
I
And
have done so much energy work. I have done so much, like I'm trained in hypnotherapy, so I've received so much hypnotherapy. Like I said, I'm a master's in counseling. I'm a health coach, so I know about the diet and lifestyle. And I've shared my story about how before I couldn't eat sugar.
I think that's what did it for me, actually. It was the sugar thing plus the change in your vibe. Like it was those two things, actually. So yes, sorry.
Yeah, the sugar thing is so huge for me. And sugar is bad. We don't need to eat it. It's detrimental to us on so many levels. And right, like we're still human. And we have this ice cream place here, and I live in Charlotte, for those listening. And it's a vegan ice cream place because I don't do dairy. And they have all these amazing flavors. And on Thursday nights, I go to this place that we have where they have outdoor movies, and the ice cream, they have a location there. So I get an ice cream cone, and I get 2 scoops typically in a waffle cone because it's gluten-free and vegan ice cream place. It's so good. Last night I had a key lime pie and lemon crumb cake. So good. And I woke up this morning in such a good mood, and I have zero suicidal thoughts, which in the past, like, it just wouldn't happen. I would wake up just so forlorn and just life sucks, right? That's how I would be in the past. And now, like, this whole entire year, I'm like, I've been so friggin' happy this whole year. And there have been shitty stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, there's been shitty stuff, but man, like, it's such a difference. Like,
as your friend, I mean, what, you and I talk like
a couple times a week, right?
Yeah, and sometimes we don't talk for months, maybe, but this year I feel like we've talked a couple times a week, pretty much consistently all year. It's night and day. It is night and day. Like, even if you had a break, you went through a breakup, that was very big, right? Like, you were trying this and that with your business. And then something happened the other day that somebody let Charlie escape, right? Like, you were so angry, but it's like, you're still, I experience you as a very positive person. And I think what I really want to say to people listening that don't know you the way that I know you is that we do live in a world of smoke and mirrors where you actually don't know what the hell you're getting when people are like, they can present themselves as like, I'm a positive person and I'm this and I'm that and I'm a good person, but you actually are. That's what I've been trying to say throughout this whole thing, is that not only are you the real deal with, like, I don't know anyone that has as many credentials as you, by the way. Not only are you super credentialed, but I've witnessed, I've experienced it. It's not like you and I talk every 6 months. I'm walking life with you and I'm seeing the difference, the change. It is so profound. And I'm like, sign me up for that. And I did.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So what would you say? I mean, I feel like you probably already said it, but for anybody who's listening and they're like, I don't know, I've done all those things. Like, I don't think it's going to do anything for me. What would you say to them?
Yeah. I would ask yourself, do some introspection and ask and feel into your body. Like, what is the thing that you would like to have change in your life? Because, like I said, for me, I thought it was definitely the social engagement. I couldn't, no matter what, I couldn't bring myself to put myself out there. I definitely couldn't bring myself to, like, stop thinking about work. And then I was feeling that, like, low grade feeling of just being down. So those are 3 things that and I spoke to Heather about it. And you're like, yeah, I really think that it would work. I mean, the sugar example was so perfect. So if you're someone that has done a lot of work, make that list. It could be just one, 2, 3 things. And then if you have any doubt, I would say send Heather a message, because I feel like you're very open about discussing. I didn't jump into SSP the first time that she told me about the sugar. Like, I was like, okay, wait, how much is it? And then I was like, because I've invested in so many things over the years, right? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to think about it. And then I'm going to think about it. And then I'm going to think about it. But then finally, it took me, I don't know how many months that I was like, okay, this is undeniable. I was like, yeah, just sign me up. I want this thing, right? So I would send her a message and know that Heather is not a pushy, you're the opposite of that. You're not a pushy salesperson, so that you really can reach out to her and have a discussion. And whether you decide to do it now or in 6 months or never, you're safe and you're good, and it's not going to tarnish the relationship. Because I know that sometimes, like, you reach out to people and if you don't buy, it's like, oh well, you're dead to me, you're not that person. Right. So you literally have nothing to lose. I'm not telling you like just do it, right? Because that might not be what you want. I'm saying reflect, reach out to Heather, have a conversation, know that she's not going to pressure you. And if she does come back to me, she won't pressure you. I've known you too long. And then you'll see, then you'll decide, then you'll have all the information, and you'll do it when you feel safe enough to do it. And all that said, sometimes you just have to take a leap. Like, I had no guarantee, and I didn't expect that to change. I didn't really even know that it could change. The fact that I was like waking up a little sad, and now I don't wake up sad. Like, I'll pay anything for that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. One of the things that I keep talking about is helping women to feel, to shift their nervous system so that money, visibility, and leadership feel safe in their body, right? It's this natural expression. And what I've heard from you over this time is that you're not stressing about money stuff like you were, a bit ago. Like, yeah, there's money stuff that's still a thing. I mean, how do going from, making as much as you did to like, oh, here's your $0, like you're not even getting a check anymore, right? And like, how do I navigate life, in this phase and building my business, now? And the thing is, that you can do it because you've done it, right? That you can build a business, but like, I don't hear you like have the money stuff be this anchor that's weighing you down, right? The visibility, like, even to be able to be like, hey, I don't even want to have to do that, and letting yourself have permission is such a big thing, because having visibility feel safe in your body doesn't mean that you're in front of a million people. It's honoring what feels good for your body, right? I hear you doing that, right? And then leadership is feeling comfortable with your leadership. Everybody has a different way of leading. That's why human design is so important, and understanding that, and our money archetypes is so important. And I hear you being like, you're stepping into this different version of you leading, of like, I love doing it this way. I want to do it this way, which is different than the way that I did it. And like, all these things are just shifting. And I love seeing that the what's the word? Like the relaxation, the like ease in your being now.
So that is something that's been, the other day I did some call and people are like, you look so relaxed, in my being. And I'm like, oh, I guess you're right. Like, they're like, the sabbatical looks good on you. And I was like, oh yeah. And you did an episode on your podcast, I think it was the last one, on money. And I was like, oh my God, I had not thought about SSP and money and visibility. And well, the fact that I told you that I canceled my EMDR session because I really feel that I was able to, I think it was two things. I think seeing that therapist and having a discussion, and her telling me like, you haven't, in all these years of working, you've never had a respite, right? Like a period of respite. I think that gave me permission. So it, again, SSP is a complementary therapy, right? So like, I went to see a professional and I spoke about this thing that was kind of plaguing me, but I absolutely believe that together with SSP, something just shifted and I was able to give myself permission. And when I put my notes into the Chat GPT, that's actually what I hadn't really seen. That it was I don't think that I would have verbalized it. It was Chat GPT that said, whoa, you started with this question. I want to be more visible and put myself out there. And I feel the reluctance to do that. And then the Chat GPT was able to see, but now it's a different question. The question is more about like giving yourself permission to completely reset. I'm going to tell you right now, you guys, making 7 figures to making like literally zero. Like I've made probably a few $100s this last month. Not even this month. I think this month I've made $70, right? Like I'm okay. That's freaking wild, because I know that when I do get back at it and when the time is right, then I'm going to be able to go with the business. Whereas before I just felt like I didn't have the capacity. I didn't have the drive. I didn't have the enthusiasm. And what I'm doing now is allowing myself, it's like winter for me, right? Like stuff is happening before the spring, and then the spring is going to come, and then we blossom. So it feels like my winter's coming to an end, and it's only been 2 months. Like I can see it in like my energy levels and my body, and like the way that I'm starting to get excited about stuff. The fact that I was like, let's do a podcast for you, Heather. I'll help you promote SSP. Like that's so unlike me. I am a helper, and I would have given a testimonial and all that stuff, but like to actually want to be on video and like to do a call with you and all that stuff, I gotta say, I feel like that's like because of my capacity with SSP. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. Our dogs are now talking.
I know. At some point, is Charlie barking too?
He's just doing his little like woof, woof, like little tiny woofs.
It's the big dog downstairs that's barking. Everybody else is sleeping. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience. You know, I've been sharing so much of what I've been experiencing with it, but it's always fun for people to hear from other people. And, you know, like Barbie said, if you're like, hey, I want to explore if this is something that that could help me, I would love to talk with you. You know, I as I've mentioned, I work with so many different modalities because SSP is like the foundation of stuff. Combining different things because it's never just one thing, and anybody who wants to sell you just one thing, run away from them, right? Because there's just different tools that we need to bring together, and everybody needs something different. So SSP helps, the foundation helps you to receive all of the rest of those. So thank you. I hope that, well, I know that the effects will continue, and maybe we'll have a follow-up conversation and see where the business is. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.